starts off with carving. Learn where the edges of the pedals are when you're coming in contact with the ground. So as you're on a bank, you want to know where the pedals are going to scratch, and then be able to manage that scraping safely. So you learn that. Find a gravel path and just play on it.
Aren't you going to slip out if you're on the gravel path?
Yeah, that's the same.
So that's what you want?
With that, yeah, you want a little bit of suck. So
okay.
You want to struggle a little bit more.
Don't try to hide, 'cause I'm gonna harm you like an animal.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the EVlution podcast. My name is Mickey from the YouTube channel EVX, and today with us we've
got Law from Instagram. My handle's a relaxturbation. But yeah, I've got a YouTube channel that'll happen eventually. It's just a matter of time till I actually get that going.
You have to say your full name. I think it's very...
Full name, Law Laxina.
But it's very Filipino.
It is.
Right?
I mean, yeah, there's really not any other Laxinas that I know of, at least in the States. But yeah, I mean...
I like it. Law Laxina.
Thank you.
I think I heard Jimmy Chang say your name, and I was like, it just rolls off the tongue.
It's got a good ring.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Happy that you're hanging out with us here in New York for a little while.
Yeah, it's a good time. I definitely love riding with you guys. It's a different experience for sure.
What was the trip for? Your parents live here in Jersey? Or?
Yes. Yeah. So it's a quick vacation, go to see somebody, and then on top of that, just go visit family and do all that extra jazz.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're from New Jersey?
From Jersey, grew up there. Ended up going into the Navy, went to Illinois, then Texas, then Okinawa, then Maryland, then back to Jersey after I got out.
Wow.
Eventually, after getting out, someone put out a feeler saying, hey, you want to move to Vegas and start working over this way as a surgical tech, as you were doing in the Navy? And then I said, yeah, sure, why not? Let's dance. So.
Wow, okay. So just happenstance that someone reached out to you about Vegas.
Exactly. Random coincidence. And then on top of that, I had some buddies out here because I used to be serious in the arcading scene over back in Okinawa. And then there's this one game called My. It's like DDR for your hands. Like you're playing patty cake with a washing machine. But yeah, playing that. Eventually, a whole bunch of friends had a nostalgia trip. And then we went to Vegas to go visit. And then ended up having a community there already. So it worked out.
Nice. So it wasn't completely the pretty lights of Vegas.
No,
just a little bit.
I'm never on the Strip.
Yeah, I've heard that from people. I don't know that I know anyone like that are direct friends of mine in my life right now that live there, but I've heard of these from people that like if you're a Vegas native or you just have lived there for a long time, you don't live on the Strip.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there are the people who are super into partying and definitely will spend their time in the Strip and at the bars over yonder, but I'm not that type. I don't really drink or do anything with extra pizzazz. But
Sure. Yeah, I wonder if that's kind of weird. I've been to Vegas twice, I think.
Okay.
Once or twice. It's got to be kind of weird to know there's just this like other like. Yeah. I guess it might be equivalent to like living just outside of Disney World or something.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got to be something like that. I mean, I'm sure people who are working at Disney World don't want to hang out there for all that time.
Oh, contraire.
Is that how it is?
Oh yes.
Really?
I mean, I grew up in Florida, and I went to Disney a lot. Our family, we were big fans of going to Disney World.
Got you.
But over the years, when I went to college in Orlando. Okay. And so I met people who worked there. Yeah. Dude, it's next level weirdness. And really? it doesn't bother me, but I know people who have heard of this, and when I tell them this, they're like, that's weird. So like I knew this girl who like she would work the popcorn stand or whatever during the day. Okay. And then she'd get off at like 7:00, and then like for 2 hours to unwind after work, she'd go back into the Magic Kingdom and like ride Splash Mountain.
Really? Okay.
Like, but look, to me as a big fan, like that sounds like a dream. Yeah. But anyone else, you're like, why would you do that?
Why do you want to go back to your workplace all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's Disney, it's a
it's a different story for sure.
But still, I mean, think about it. They're like working for peanuts, like doing like awful jobs.
Yeah,
still.
At least there's little perks.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, so you ride an electric unicycle, obviously.
Yes, I am one of those nerds.
Myself included. We've had people on the podcast that ride e-bikes, unicycles, scooters, e-boards, all that kind of stuff. But nice to have another EUC guy here. Sure. So you ride mainly in Vegas. Tell me, we're very familiar with what the New York sort of scene is like.
Yeah.
Just help me dive into number one, like the terrain. Okay. But then also, like, what's the scene like out there?
Okay, so the scene is, as opposed to New York where you see somebody on anything electric, you just be like, okay, it's just another dude. If in Vegas, if you see anybody with an electric vehicle, you are going to go find them and chase after them and say, hey, we need to be friends. Because we're extremely excited to see other people riding. Especially if there's anybody on an electric unicycle, then we'll chase them down and say, hey, we're buddies now. Let's go hang out.
I'm guessing they're slow enough that you can catch them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, realistically, you only have, like, a select few people who are really going to start riding out, getting closer to beeps. Most Vegas riders don't really ride beeps. We more so emphasize just the technical riding and that just jumping and just skill aspect of that. Yes, it is a skill for sure, being able to ride beeps and control that little borderline. But even with that, it's the roads that we have over there don't exactly support that. Mm-hmm. Whereas, say if you're riding on the road, generally we'll have like the side streets, which are 25 miles per hour top speed, speed limit. You'll end up having the 45s, which are not exactly where you want to be riding. And you have the certain 35s where there's like usually a little bike lane off the side. If we ride in the bike lane, cars kind of freak out just because they're not used to anything like with a heartbeat on the bicycle lane, because it's just a little painted line. I mean, yeah, like you can't ride nearly as aggressive as you could out here with the bike lanes, just because, or I mean, if you're trying to go on the street and stuff like that, you don't want to get in front of cars because cars don't know how to handle themselves.
Yeah, I guess it's more, I would imagine, kind of open roady, right?
It's definitely
more suburban.
Right.
So it's not like, so like, I guess on the strip would be the closest you guys might come to like riding in traffic like us a little bit.
In a way, yes. We do ride in the strip every once in a while, but really we'll just take over, say like the right lane and then just cruise in there.
That's got to be legal, right?
Debatable.
Because I know, I could be wrong, but I remember in Florida, like I'm pretty sure the law was like, if you got two cyclists riding in a lane in Florida, like that's okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is for Vegas. If you have like cyclists and you take up the rightmost lane, and then as long as you're not taking up every other lane, then that's fine. And then if there's like 5 cars piled up behind you in a single lane, then you have to pull over to the curb and let them pass at least.
Gotcha. Right, so your terrain arguably is probably a lot smoother than ours?
It's so smooth, it's ridiculous. Say in Vegas, we end up having a lot of bike paths, and then...
The bike paths, well done?
Bike paths are gorgeous.
Really?
I love them.
Because here, that's a dirty word.
Yeah, right?
You've probably seen it.
Exactly, no.
At least in the last week, if not before that. It's like... The bike lane is a joke.
Yeah, you don't want to be there for sure unless you're...
I mean, you know, to be fair, I do think the bike lane is like really good technical riding place.
Yes, you learn, and you're forced to, because there's all the people that you have to dodge and not get destroyed.
It could be very fun if you're into it. A lot of guys here aren't into it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some merit to it.
Exactly. Yeah, you have all the random bumps. Like, say in Vegas, we have some sidewalks that'll end up being like a little bit curvy, but they'll still be pretty reasonably smooth. Generally, if we start hitting that like 20 mile per hour or faster than 20, then we'll get off the sidewalk and then just start riding the road as a bicycle or whatever. But anyways, we have all the bike lanes in Vegas end up kind of connecting into each other. As far as getting from like the east side to the west side, you end up having to take up like some regular roads and all that. But if you're on like the Henderson side on the east end, then there's so many different bike lanes getting to, like, going down alongside the highway. You've got different...
There's multiple?
There's so many bike lanes.
Like at the same time?
It's absurd. Not necessarily at the same time, but they connect to each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
if this is the road here, you're just, like, to the right outside of it?
Yeah, to the outside of it. It's a completely separate one.
Right, okay. Yeah. It's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't fear death while you're...
Because you were saying other places where there isn't one, there's like a little line.
You have the painted line.
Yeah. That's kind of like when I rode with Duff in Florida.
Okay.
He was like, we're going to the bike lane, and I was like, I grew up down here and didn't ever understand that was a bike lane.
Right.
Because it just looks like the painted line before you, like, pull over.
Exactly. You know? That little emergency lane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, bike lanes end up going. So like in my area, you end up going through bike lanes, and you're hitting through the whole bunch of different parks that end up connecting to each other via more bike lanes. And then at each park, you'll end up finding just random sidewalks and little things to jump off of and do like random technical stuff.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So it sounds like you have like, like the nirvana of riding out there.
It's a great time.
But if it's that smooth and stuff, like what are you hopping over and what are you doing? You're inventing bugs? You're jumping over bugs?
As you're finding like each random line, you'll end up seeing, say like if we're at a playground, there's like say like one rubber terrain with a little piece of curb on it, and then you'll jump from that one to another piece of curb onto another like rubber platform or whatever. There's those little things. You'll end up riding the edges of curbs as they're like the little lips and stuff like
go
that.
Up, yeah, okay.
Exactly, riding those edges. There's skate parks out there. You'll end up riding around. It just
Do you hit
depends
the
on
skate parks?
All the time. They're fun time.
So compared to Phantomus, where would you put yourself?
I'm not as edgy.
I feel like I love
what he does,
but the brute strength. You're just like, wow,
Yeah.
that's very high.
Like I have the capability of doing so. It's just the risk assessment is not exactly there. I mean, it's there, but
I mean,
I don't want to.
In the best way, they're crazy Russians.
Exactly.
You know, in the way that we're just like in awe of, like,
right.
Why do that?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm by trade, I'm a surgical tech. So then, if I ever have a serious spill, then that's my job. I'd rather have my hands in the end and still be able to do it. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, okay. So what is like what's generally, if you're really thinking about it, what's the top speed on a single or group ride scenario that you're hitting?
It depends on the amount of riders that we have and the skill of the rider. Generally, if we have like a bigger group, then we'll end up doing like maybe 20, 25. Whereas if we're in that smaller, like 3-4 person group, then we'll start hitting that 30, 35 range. But generally we don't bother riding beeps because we'd rather keep the range and extend our ride for the whole day, whole night.
It's interesting. I like that there's a difference. That's what I wanted to have you on. It's like there's a difference of riding. Although it does a little strange that you were like, oh, I got the RS high speed.
Yeah. So that one, it's just that little extra peace of mind if I'm riding at 40, then I don't want to have to worry so much because you have the 62 mile per hour cutout from the lift test that I did.
Right. So that's going to give you at best 52.
Exactly, 52. So roughly. Then when we're riding, say like the River Mountain Loop Trail, it's like a 37 mile trail that goes. There's so many like random hills and stuff, and then there's a lot of like open lanes that you can just let it rip.
And do you ever? I'm just thinking about there's that one guy Zen who's out there.
Yeah.
I've just seen a couple of videos with him riding like in and around like rock faces. Are you often doing that? Are you going off trail?
Well, he does is cute. He does cute stuff. We do a lot more technical stuff. Like so, you have the mountain biking trails, and then
so that's where he might have been in a video.
He might have done a couple, but then if you see, it depends on who you're riding with. If we get like a good group going with maybe like 2 or 3 riders, and off the top of my head, then we'd be doing a lot like faster pace type stuff. And if you see like the drops and the different sorts of jumps that I'll end up doing, it's completely different.
Okay.
Yeah, it just depends. Like you have so many mountain biking trails on top of that because you have so much desert terrain that people end up setting tracks around. It's a lot of fun.
You're again, like, you're kind of like in the suburbs a little bit, so you're not like getting lost in the desert necessarily.
Oh, you can. If you go far out enough, but at the same time, most things are still going to be within like visible range.
Okay. And then all right, so when you're riding, do you have seasons out there?
We have seasons.
Okay,
yeah, it's starting to get more chilly. Like today, it was in like the 55s, I think.
Okay,
but
that's like kind of what it is here.
Exactly, it's not far off.
Yeah. Okay. So I've always heard like it gets freezing in the desert at night.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you carry? Do you carry anything on your person to prepare for that kind of thing?
If you just for the cold and all that.
Yeah. Like.
So
look, personally here in New York, like I have packables. I have a very specific rigid thing in my backpack. Like I always have a Uniqlo thing. Like I've got a lot just in case.
The extra layers.
I'm out, like the other night I'm here working late all the time, and I was riding home, and I just had my jacket on, and I was like, that's not enough. Yeah. So I pulled out my packable.
Yeah, I mean, really, when we when we do rides together, then most people end up driving over to wherever. So then chances are you end up throwing a hoodie into your car, and then you're good to go with that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you can always shed whatever material if need be.
So there aren't really, I guess it's safe to say, many people that are like commuting on these things.
Definitely not. You have some people
Has
who
it crossed your mind?
So like
to try, or is that ridiculous?
I thought about it. It's not entirely worth it because I'd rather get that extra 15 minutes of sleep. But it depends. Like so
it just take longer.
I'm on So I live on the East End, and then I work on the West End, which is usually like a 15-minute drive or so. And then if I'm riding, it turns it into 45, 50. And then working at the surgery center, sometimes we'll end up getting messaged an hour before and say, okay, we need to be here within the next hour for cases starting, and then I'll just show up rather than drive. Wherever I go, though, I'll end up bringing my wheel. I'll throw it in the trunk, call it a day. If anybody wants to meet up and go riding, then it's already there. I'll just go meet up at said spawn point, and then that's it.
So do you find yourself, I'm sure you're highly addicted like the rest of us.
Oh, for sure.
Do you find yourself like, as soon as like work lets out, you're just like surfing your cell phone to see who wants to ride?
Yeah, we have our little chat called Not Bicycles. But
I like that. Yeah,
so pretty much we'll just like message each other and say, hey, what are you guys doing right now? Okay, well, let's go meet up at our hub. So you guys have your little you have your kung fu tea over here.
That's your headquarters over there?
We have an all-you-can-eat sushi place where the manager of the place is one of our riders. So then we end up getting 10% off for the sushi place.
And you charge there as well?
Yeah, for sure. There's so many outlets over there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know. I don't know. You guys need to charge all that much.
Yeah,
you're driving to where you're going, and then
there's that, ride. And then on top of that, we're not riding at full send all the time. So then it's just that extra range that gives us all the
relaxing. So when you watch review videos and they say the advertised range, your range is probably pretty close to that.
It's not far off. I mean, there are certain times where we do like to do like the heavy acceleration and heavy deceleration. So then that's going to be eating a lot of battery for sure.
You have torque syndrome.
Exactly. Over in Vegas, the MSP torque is like the wheel that you would probably want to have for our community and the way that we ride. There's a couple people that will use their wheels to commute, and then they'll end up having Nicola's generally.
It's a great wheel.
It is a great wheel, but it's just a little chunky for me. It's not really mine.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of concessions with any wheel, really.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but sure, I feel that.
Yeah, if the RS, either of those ended up having the same lock-in as the MSP Pro, the MSP Torque, then the MSP torque would be completely irrelevant.
So okay, this is fascinating. So you think the MSP is not irrelevant just because of the pedal angle?
Just because of that. They're the pedal dip, lack of pedal dip.
Oh, the pedal dip. But the pedal angle is different though too.
The pedal angle is fine. You can shim any wheel.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say is like, why don't you just shim it?
So my point is, when you're doing a long turn, then your toe ends up dipping down a little bit. And then when you're doing that, you're not able to corner as fast because you end up having to slow down a little bit to adjust to that turn. Or adjust to the pedal angle.
The Sherman has a bit of that. I feel like
it's horrible. I hate it.
I feel like I kind of eradicated it. We've got there's a Sherman chat room on Telegram. And it's been talked about a lot. I think I found, and I'd be curious to know if your RS high torque, if it solves it in the same way. It was just like trial and error of getting the thing just perfectly balanced, center, forward, forward and back, and side to side. You know, I've been balancing my wheels for years. I've never worried about side to side.
Right.
Should I have been?
Side to side matters.
Really?
For some reason.
How? It doesn't make any sense.
It's just the way it's calibrated. And then when
I've never done it. I just put it up against the wall.
Right, and just call it a day.
It's slightly, and then I worry about front to back.
Yeah. I noticed that before with my King Song, the 16X, that was my second wheel. But when I did an actual calibration on a stand, it made a huge difference when it came to me like carving around. Before it used to be.
How do you do it on a stand? Hold on.
On an EUC stand. Okay.
I know, because I have Duff's EUC stands, but you're lifted off the ground.
Yes.
So are you shoving a brick under it, or what are you doing?
What do you mean by shoving a brick under it?
Like once you turn it on, isn't it going to like zoom off on you and go crazy?
No, because when it's calibrated, then you're going to be at that angle.
But I mean, to calibrate it, it's sitting off the ground. So if you turn it on, is it not going to start spinning?
No, nope. It stays dead until it finds that, until it locks in, and then you'll have, it's like the beep, 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 and then when you have that long beep with the, say Gatway. With the Gatway, then you would end up having that long beep, and then at that point, it's not going to be moving at all, because that's the calibration, that's the happy point where it's zeroed out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you
They're
start
all
playing
the same,
with
by the way.
Well, yeah.
King Song does the
true
same
story,
thing.
True story. Yeah, if you do that,
there's a long beep, there's a bunch of beeps,
yeah,
the whole thing.
Sure. But yeah, pretty much after you start like moving it, after turning it back on, that's a different story. But after
So
after the
all right, so once it goes off, you've got to take it off.
You take it off,
stand,
then you turn it on, and then confirm whether or not it's nice or not.
Gotcha. Well, so that's what I did. I did it I didn't do it on a stand, but I had my level out, and I did it both ways. And then on the Sherman, you can just do clicks of leveling as well. So I clicked it back one, and I feel like it's like kind of perfect now. Yeah. So that pedal dip that I had forward in every turn is just like so minimal, I don't even really notice it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I ended up having to do to adjust to the pedal dip for the RS, both models, so with the MSP, generally I would end up guiding with the toe on the inside of the turn. So say if I'm doing like a hard left turn for a long period of time, or even a short period of time, I would end up driving it with the left toe and the right heel. Mm-hmm. In doing that, it still stays stable. Whereas if I'm using the RS and I'm doing that same left inside toe, then it'll end up dipping hard. So then the way you end up having to combat that is by doing right toe out and then left heel in to keep it stable. But
I turn that way in the Sherman.
Yeah.
My heel is leading into the turn.
Right.
So left hand turn, I'm putting pressure on my heel.
Yeah, it's a little bit less optimal when you're doing that turn. It has a higher likelihood of wobbling as opposed to doing the left toe in.
I think I do it mainly because of the tire that way.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's just like this drop off, on the Sherman tire.
Yeah, the Sherman tire is great because it's just floaty. Once you find that angle,
it is. It's interesting you say that, because anyone who out there who purchased a Sherman, like the first week or two, before you break in that tire, or maybe you're just a nutso and you break it in like in a day,
right?
But I feel like it takes a little while to get used to every wheel.
Yeah,
it feels like scary, a little sketchy, like how. Yeah. But once your body figures it out, it starts to. I know it's my mind playing tricks on me, but it feels like an MSX, like an OG MSX, that just rolls right in and out of that turn for me.
I wouldn't say that.
I'm just like, it could be my brain, but it feels that way once you get used to it.
Right. Yeah. The MSX tire, I love that thing. It's like it's more rounded at the base, so then you end up being able to hold angles and stay there. Whereas if you're like on a CST tire or the same on the Nikola or
we call that the awful tire.
The horrible
the CST
garbage tire. Some people like it.
They still put on every freaking wheel.
It's good.
Isn't that what's on your RS or no?
No, I swapped that out right away.
Oh, but it came that way.
It came that way.
Yeah.
And I swapped that out as soon as I saw that.
You put Satan's tire on.
Yep. Correct.
Those who don't know, that's the H666 tire.
Yep. Yeah, that thing it handles a lot better. It's that in between for the between the MSX tire and the CST, where it likes to stay upright, but at the same time,
gyro feel a little bit.
It's got a little bit of gyro feel, but at the same time, it can do the sideways carving and handle better like that. But yeah, I mean that with the knobby, you're drifting. I mean, you hold that angle and you can float.
It's a little scary.
It is scary.
The other night when I was racing turbo around Central Park, I was at 45 miles an hour flying around Central Park. The turns come, and I just sort of like trepidation. I hadn't really done deep turns at that speed yet on the wheel. I've only had it for like a month or so. Yeah. So it's like you turn into it, and I knew this is a thing, and I feel like your muscle memory figures it out at slower speeds. But like on the Sherman, like when you lean into a turn, you stay there unless you pull out. So basically at 45, I lean in, and I'm like, oh crap, like I need to get back straight again, and it's a little freak out moment. I mean, nothing bad happened. It's all up here, but I'm just like, oh crap. And I pulled back out, and I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. I need to figure out how much pressure I can do at that speed. Because wherever you put it, the Sherman wants to leave you there. So if you're going straight, it takes a little bit of effort to get out of the straight. Yeah, but then once you're in the turn, it's like effort to get back.
Just having to try to find that friction point where you can carry it back safely and not have to worry about sliding out entirely.
It's definitely, you might even mention it to me, it's much easier without my seat on there to do it.
Yes. You
lose a little bit of like maneuverability.
Right.
But I'm trying more and more to keep my seat on. I'm not a seated rider.
Okay.
But I love the seat from always get it wrong. Is it Brian Zoom Wheels or Zoom Wheels Brian?
I don't remember, but it's
the guy in the UK.
It's a pretty seat for sure.
Yeah, great seat. Arguably one of the best seats out there. Could be better. Don't get me wrong. I might make mine better. But yeah, it's like I definitely like it more without the seat, but I'm trying to keep it more on there because there are definitely moments where you're like,
right. I'm lazy. I just want to get down.
I just want to sit. So like the other night we went riding in the city and me and my buddy Chris, who's got one of those OG 84 volt MSXs still, and he's got this nice seat. Like, I was like, it's late at night. I'm kind of feeling like a grandpa. Like, let me just try it. I hadn't really done a lot of seated at speed, and it was actually really nice. Yeah, and you have to learn. I think with any kind of seated riding.
I think with seated riding, the biggest thing is understanding that you need to squeeze the body with your legs. Yeah. So it's that, and then if you have like jump pads, then you can use your ankles to help support that.
Kind of use like my heel, ankle, to like push the wheel left or right. And
like you're still doing a little bit of the step into the turn type of deal, but at the same time, it's more once you pinch the wheel with your legs, then you can just squeeze it into whatever direction. Right. And it helps.
Yeah. So, but I started to really figure out also like because I was in New York City compared to say Vegas. You have tons of bumps, like every
so many
3
bumps.
blocks. You're like, there's no way. So that's why I've never been a big seated rider because I'm like, this isn't comfortable. If you're sitting on that seat, any seat, monster seat, whatever it is, and you smack a bump, yeah. So
with Vegas, I think it's so smooth for different paths, and you can just seated ride the whole
way. Yeah. So I've started to figure out like what to do when I see the bump. Different when you don't see it, but when I see the bump, like. All I'm doing is just sort of like half standing up like a jockey. Right. And let it just like pop up underneath you and sit back down again.
If I don't jockey, then what I recently, maybe like the last month or two, started learning how to jump while seated. Like you end up using so jump pads. It's a beautiful thing. It's super underrated. Everybody just believes in power pads, brake pads, but there's so much more. But if you had a nice set of jump pads, then you can lock those underneath your instep. And then with that instep, you just pull it up as you ride seated. Then you're good to go.
Yeah, I think it also helps if you have a wheel that weighs a lot less than mine.
No, you can jump a Sherman easily.
Bro.
First thing when I was on a...
I'm sure it is jumpable. I put some jump pads on there, and I've popped a little curb, but it's
not for everybody.
It's not comfortable.
Yeah, it depends.
Again, I've only done it like a few times, but I feel like jumping your wheel is a lot more comfortable.
Oh, yeah, it's way more comfortable. It's super nimble, but if you get used to it, then it's totally doable. I mean, the first time I got on the Sherman, I literally went to Marty's group ride for the Sherman demo, and I came there with 2 foam pads and double-sided tape, and then as soon as I got my hands on it, just slapped the pads on and then jumped a parking space with it.
I'm sure Marty and his like so old confused. Man crew were like, "What?"
he was a little really hesitant just because he didn't know me, so I get it. But
yeah, he's probably like, "Who the hell?
Like, who is this guy just throwing
random?" I didn't realize like just. I don't mean this in a bad way, but just how old the crew is there. Like,
oh, for sure.
Like I've seen Marty and he looks pretty young for his age. Right. And then I saw the big event that he had out there, the big Grand Tour or whatever he called it.
The Marty Tour.
And I was like, dang, it's fascinating. Just again, I'm sure this sounds awful, but I'm just saying it's fascinating just the different scene because I mean you've ridden out here
for sure.
And
there's so many young
pretty
riders.
Young, like
so many young riders.
It's a little. No, I'm the grandpa out here, right? So it's like it's a little. I'm in my 30s. It's a little uncomfortable. Right. Some of the kids like 14. You're like, what is this?
Like, oh God. Say like in Vegas, we end up. I'm the youngest rider out there. I'm trying to think. There's me and there. I think I'm the youngest rider out there in Vegas right now. But you look at the general demographic, people are in their 30s, 40s, and then we got a couple in their 50s. But yeah, generally it's the older crowd where it's like, okay, I'm comfortable with life. Let's start buying random toys. And that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly like why it was strange for us out here when we saw like kids show up. We're like,
right.
So some of them are just like wealthy kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Then other kids, you're like,
how did you get that wheel?
Yeah, like I know where you live, and it's not a nice place. Nothing against you, but it's interesting that how did you come into this? You know,
Klarna.
It's like
plans.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting that they came across it.
Yeah.
Right, because it's already even to this day when people see us, even in New York City, people are like,
confused.
"What is that?" Right. So the fact that there was a kid somewhere, I guess I'm not surprised because kids like pick up on stuff, but it's like quick. The fact that a kid saw it, found a way to somehow finance it for himself, who doesn't come from a wealthy family. I mean, I don't come from a wealthy family.
Selling chiclets.
Yeah, and then they found a way to get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting, but it's cool. It's great to have different people of different, economic backgrounds, different ethnicities. Like it's really, actually, I think at least here in New York, it's very diverse.
Yeah, for sure.
And I appreciate that it's not just this like rich white guy club or something.
Oh, it's definitely not that. I mean, you see so many people who are coming up from like skateboard communities, all the motocross communities, and
I think it's kind of newer. The motocross coming into it.
They're starting just recently.
I think probably because of the suspension wheel, or the S18 has probably piqued some of their interest.
I think it's also just having a lot more people doing the off-road clip or putting out more off-road clips than people are interested in seeing that realm.
Yeah. Well, I know when I went to the mountain bike track when I was in Florida with the S18, I attracted a couple of guys who would just go there all the time, and they were like, "What is that thing?"
Yeah.
And then they were like, they weren't mad. They were just like so intrigued by it, and they were like, "Well, this is." There's like two levels of like insanity to them. Number one, the fact that this thing exists. Number two, that I was like riding the mountain bike track that they do, and like jumping up stuff
Still
and off stuff.
Yeah.
And they were like,
"Why are you keeping up with us?"
Mind blown.
Yeah, that's how it is in Vegas and on the mountain bike trails. So you've got this one trail called Bear's Best. There's it's like a giant spider web of random trails that interlock. We'll be riding on those and just completely passing up mountain bikes.
Is it like dirt?
Yeah, it's dirt, and then you have a lot
clay.
of.
I think of like a red clay.
It's a lot of gravel, not necessarily red clay. It's a lot more.
I'm just in like sandy, a Disney cartoon when I imagine where you guys ride.
Sandy, rocky, jagged rocks. If you fall off the side, then you probably will have a bad day.
You need a little roost on then, huh?
Oh yeah, you generally want to have that extra chest protection, or at least.
Do you wear any?
Layer. I'm an idiot, so no. So what I do, as far as protection, I've got Fox Titan Pro knees and shins. I've got I forget if there's shift and force or elbows. It's some kind of like quick slip-on elbow. Mm-hmm. I've got motorcycle gloves.
Is it hard? The elbow thing
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. I've got my enduro helmet if I'm doing like lower speed off-road or just like a casual off-road or casual ride. I've got that's pretty much it really. I usually just ride with Chucks.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so that's your preferred riding shoe.
So riding shoes. What I like is a skate shoe that is soft at the bottom. My problem with having a harder shoe is that you're not able to feel where you are exactly on the pedal.
I mean, typical skateboard problem.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Like the way I ride. So I've got on almost all my wheels. I use MSX pedals just because they're super minimalistic, and then I don't have to have that extra slack off the end of off the edge of the pedal to end up scraping on. So I'd rather be able to bank as far as possible to not have to worry about
Galway has the new honeycomb ones that are like the Sherman. They're longer and skinny.
I don't like the longer one because I like clawing. So when you're able to claw, and you have a jump pad on, then you're able to kind of press against the jump pad and crank the wheel forward even more than you would a regular pedal.
I got you.
Yeah. So doing that, and if you have like pedal spikes, I've been using those. You saw the carpet mat that I've been using.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just flip the carpet mat, trim it, and then just mount it on with
whatever. Yeah, he says
glue.
Trim it, but you had to get like metal snips.
I used tin snips for that.
Yeah.
But I used a little cheap pair of scissors before, and it would give me all the cramps.
Yeah, I bet it would.
Yeah. So
then you discovered the real man scissors.
I graduated. But yeah, I use like skinnier pedals. And then, I want to have high top Vans, but at the same time, the problem with high top Vans is that the inner padding of that high top Van is going to be getting in the way of my setup of my wheel. Like, so when I designed my pad setup initially, then I made it like to work around my Chucks and just something that's more minimalistic.
I mean, my riding shoe is a high top Van.
Right.
And specifically, weirdly enough, the ones that have like extra padding in the heel.
Yeah.
So everything that you're not all about. But to be fair, it's not. It's, some guys here wear Timbs.
I can't do
You're
that.
like, what?
It's so sketchy. Yeah, because you hit a bump and then you're shifting all the time.
I have some Red Wing boots that are like great to wear when I'm walking around.
Right.
In the fall and winter.
But wouldn't want to ride.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like an awful time.
Some people like it. I get it. Some people. I've got a couple of riders in Vegas or one rider in mind that I can think of right now. He likes to use motorcycle boots.
Like, doesn't Kevin do that too in San Francisco?
Probably.
Alien rides.
I think so. Yeah, but you can't feel the pedal. I mean, if if you have like a really heavy setup where your feet aren't going to be slipping at all, then sure, it works.
Right.
But again, I do like to have that little extra.
So just like a skater, you need serious board feel,
right.
basically.
Yeah. For especially if you're jumping, then you want to know where your pedals are exactly, not necessarily have your feet affixed to the affixed to the, or just to the shoe, really, not necessarily the wheel.
Okay. So what made you sort of get into, I guess, the like more technical style of riding?
I had a 16X, and it wasn't the fastest.
True.
So then I was riding alongside Nicola's and a Tesla also. I'm trying to think of who else was riding at the time. But yeah, generally Nicola's and a Tesla, and then I would have the 16S, but then got rid of that, or I kept that until I sold it to my ex, and then got the 16X. But the 16X, it's not the fastest wheel, so then in turn you have to find joy in it other ways, so just turned into technical riding.
I do find it's a fun wheel. Like
it is.
It made you. That's why I think a lot of New Yorkers don't love it. It's
right.
like, at least with the original tire, I'm sure there's a third tire now they've gone through that they put as stock. But the original stock tire, which was like the CX or something.
Yeah.
It was very fun. It just rode very differently.
Super nimble. I loved how it was. I wish it had a little bit more top speed, but
it had a huge. But the original tire had a huge gyro feel, which generally is not seen as a good thing. But
exactly.
I liked that you could just sort of like, almost like crank your body left and like let go
and just hold it,
and you'd come back though.
Yeah, or just okay, coming back that way. Yeah, doing that it would annoy me whenever I would get put onto like again the CST tire. That thing, every time you're on a carve and then it doesn't want to stay, and then you're just drifting off to the side rather than like staying stuck to the concrete.
A more rounded would be better.
Exactly. Yeah, rounded is a good time.
So because your riding style is not unique, but it's just different from at least what a lot of guys do here in New York.
Right.
Yeah. So you have the 16X. What made you decide to start doing like little technical like pop-ups and jumps and like little, somewhat blurring the line between skating and EUC?
So coming up from martial arts and skate, so I used to skate with freeline skates. You heard of those? Like
I feel like
rollerblades and skateboards made a baby, and there's like two decks with like that are like maybe like a tiny square, and then you've got two wheels on each one.
Interesting.
Yeah, those ones, it's like really fluid. And then you're constantly like just doing like an S shape to get around, and then on top of that, you can do like just 180s, 360s, and it's fluid and it's pretty. Mm-hmm. So then I kind of wanted to translate that into EUC just to be able to carve around and have just that fluid movement. So then that kind of carried over with the 16X, and then there's some points in time where I would go up or down a curb, or I would go down a curb, and then I would want to go up. So with wanting to go up, eventually I ended up making my own jump pads, and then I was able to go up. Or no, I actually used surf pads. I took two of those and I just slapped them on the side and right under the instep, and then pulled the wheel up from there.
Did you have this idea from like seeing like stuff on YouTube, or like how did you figure that out?
As far as jump pads, or what are you talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
Jump pads. There's somebody in the community, like on one of the Facebook groups, they ended up using, they used power pads, or they used the surf pad, like from Punt Surf or whatever, and then they would use that as their power pad. So I copied that, and then after finding the need to be able to just hop up curbs rather than have to look for a ramp, then I ended up getting a second one to throw underneath that power pad, and then started pulling up that one. Over time, it turned into me taking like exercise mats and double-sided tape and just copying kind of Kuji, but in a way. But then eventually it started going off into my own thing where rather than emphasizing the ankle to pull the wheel up, then I started emphasizing the instep to pull the wheel up.
I find that interesting that he's all about the ankle. That's cool.
Yeah, it doesn't seem efficient to me, because what happens is if you only have like a tiny bump on your ankle rather than the full like top of your foot, it's
seems like the very flawed way to design an entire wheel around this, don't you think? S18. Because clearly he must have the boniest ankles known to man.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people like weirded them out, that whole situation.
Right.
The pads are like,
with that
fascinating that like King Song just let him lead them down that path completely. Yeah. Well, I mean, what like to be fair, what do they know?
Exactly. I mean, there's
a lot of these companies just saw themselves as factories until kind of recently. They probably still do.
Maybe. I mean,
Gotway definitely were the last holdout until recently that were like, we're just factories. Like, we just put stuff out. What do you want from us?
Yeah, I'm happy that there are other companies are definitely getting more outreach from other people. Or they're reaching out to other people to get things done. What I would want is maybe just a flat body on the side. Like, just like if you take a MSP or RS, then you take that, and then if the packaging included like two 45-degree angled wedges that you can just add on yourself as jump pads, and then maybe like two more 45-degree wedges to throw on as a power pad or a brake pad.
Mm-hmm.
That would be beautiful. It probably wouldn't cost that much just to do, rather than the piece of rubber that they just throw on top of it.
Yeah, the trouble is they just have to sell to
exactly
more than the few.
Right. Like,
well, to be fair, they still kind of get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure.
Like the 16X pads I found very intriguing. They, like, as far as like,
or the stock side pads.
Yeah,
it was such a weird shape. The very bottom over by the pedal, it has like a little sliver of extra material that I just hated because it was just unnecessary friction. So with that, I ended up just taking that, cutting it right above the pedal, so then you could peel off that bottom, and then it would free up the pedals to be able to slide up and down.
Right. Yeah, I felt like they had the padding sort of near the top that was like thicker and like squishier. That to me was like, I felt like they were thinking a little bit. I don't know if they nailed it, but they were thinking. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh, you thought about it. Like, I actually made use of those.
Yeah.
Back then, my riding style was a little bit more docile, but yeah, I felt like it was like the first time I felt like where a wheel thought of it. Like, if you look at other King songs in the past, like you said, you had a 16S.
Yeah.
The world's worst pads on, and it's like
it's a durable wheel.
I think they had different iterations, but the one I had, because I had that same wheel, it was a big giant plastic jut out, and they're like, well, to make up for this, we'll just put a thin pad around it.
That's not how you do it.
You're like, dude. Intriguing. So are a lot of guys in Vegas more technical riders, or do you think you're sort of a little bit in your own camp there?
So there's me, and then there's everybody else, in a way. Not trying to brag, but so like we're definitely, a lot of people are getting a lot closer. So we really emphasized getting more technical riding out there. Maybe 50% of our riders are able to jump up curbs with their own jump pad setups. They'll come to me, and then we'll set up.
And you actually mean jump up, because like me, I slam into a curb,
no, it's not
so
just
it pops me up.
Not just bonking the curb, but actually like clearing it entirely.
Yeah, I make the locals go, whoa.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god,
you make
so cool.
The riders go, what?
They get confused. It was hilarious when I was first hanging out with them, and then you saw the clip of me jumping over 3 people over the stairs. Yeah, it was just a regular day for me, but everyone's just confused.
I was glad that I think somebody pointed it out that I don't completely agree with. They were like, there's a video of you that came out in New York where you were jumping over a few guys down a stair set, which I have actually personally not jumped people, but just sort of like traveled down plenty of times. Sure. Not cleared.
Okay.
I've gone down them. I didn't jump them.
Okay.
Where those same dopes that you were with were like, what? Who does stairs? Right?
What's the point?
So then you were jumping them, like literally jumping over humans. But they were like, someone was like, oh, Tashawn's been doing that for years. Yeah. Maybe, kind of.
To the same extent,
but,
I don't know.
But people like definitely know Tashawn as like the super fast rider in New York for a while. But I'm glad that you sort of like start opening the eyes of some people here, because I think that New York is ripe for the EUC community, but we've kind of gotten stuck in this one lane.
Right. That's what I've definitely noticed. Like everybody's into, we need top speed. We need to be able to just be the best, as in just be able to weave through cars and get through a single avenue faster than anybody else.
Which is in and of itself ironic, because if you ride with the guys here, there's a top few who are very good at lane splitting and getting from, like, say, the bottom of the island to the top. Yeah. But I've tracked them because I ride with them. When they are lane splitting doing that, their top speed's 26. Now, I've seen them on other occasions have just as much balls in our famous cutout tunnel to go 46 or whatever their wheel could have handled back then. Right. Not like the Sherman. They can do 50.
Easy.
But, like, yeah, they're not really tanking down the road. I mean,
it's a different story.
But, yeah, I think the steamrolling here has become just the one lane that New York has kind of been known for. So which I don't hate, but
it's not a bad thing.
I enjoy the fact that you sort of like, especially with younger guys, because you were hanging out with some younger guys.
It's that little reminder that there's more to the world than just booking it.
Yeah, I think any rider who's really look, there's so many different riders. We kind of just said that there's different types of riders. Then there's the people who believe that there's nothing else in the world but riding. Mm-hmm. I'd like to think I'm in that camp, but I know I'm not, as I have other things going on in my life. Uh-huh. I'm like a step removed. I'm like 1 degree down from that. Yeah. Like I ride every single day. Okay. Like every single day. There's not a day where I don't ride, and any chance I get to do something dumb, I'm riding to go do it. Like if it's like
all the excuses.
Go to the bodega on the corner to get a sandwich, like I'm gonna use my unicycle to do it. Yeah. So anyway, so I think that there's different types of riders. There's like, well, I think New York has named it. We coined the phrase the no skills zombie rider, which describes certain types of riders. And there's guys who are super fast riders, and there's guys who are more technical. Right. There's everything in between. So I think I think everyone who is riding for more than just weekend pleasure, who is like kind of become addicted like us, should want to sort of try to excel at
expand
different things. Else, that may not mean you might be like, you know what, it ain't worth the risk of me doing a stair set.
Oh no, for sure. I mean, that's not for everybody, for sure.
Yeah.
But also that ends up going into like pad setups for that. Like if you only have Russian pads or Clark pads, or I mean Clark pads work for certain situations.
Right.
But if you only have regular power pads, then there's a high likelihood that you're not jumping or doing anything else. Because when you're in the air, then your feet end up having that higher likelihood of flopping around, and you can't control the wheel nearly as much as you could if you had specific jump pads.
Right, exactly. Like landing could be a bad day for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was talking to my buddy Rob down in Miami, and he was like, I don't understand power pads. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, they don't give you power. Why do people use them? I'm like, I don't know that I agree. I think if you're trying to go fast, they definitely give you leverage.
You definitely get more out of it. Say like with the M Super Pro, the torque version, nobody appreciated that wheel because they would generally ride with the stock pads, which is literally just 2 slivers of rubber that you can't crank down on. Mm-hmm. But then as soon as you add power pads, then that's when you really start noticing that there's more to it than just.
I mean, the same thing with like an MSX, like a 100 volt. The guys here would be able to steamroll down the street, you know, because we all kind of know that torque matters a little bit more than speed.
Right.
So they would like be out of here, zooming out, like what the heck? Yeah. You know, they just had those Russian pads, you know, and they were just like lean their whole body weight into it. Makes a difference,
you know? And then even with the Sherman, you don't not even necessarily the pads, but being able to grab on the back handle and crank it forward. And I was watching, or Wheezy and I were riding earlier today. And then, it was interesting looking at just him grabbing the back of it and just lifting it up to get that acceleration. It was kind of sketchy, but at the same time, it worked.
What speed were you going?
Good question. From the start. And then,
so from the start, he's grabbing the back of his Sherman?
Grabbing the back. It's dipping forward.
Okay, because that's actually ridiculous and dumb.
Oh, for sure, I agree.
Because the Sherman has a very specific and very weird problem. If you don't know, the Sherman is inefficient is the word we like to use, below 20 miles an hour. So basically, unlike a Gotway wheel, if you tried to crank it from 0, you will cut out.
Yeah.
Wheezy probably weighs like 100 pounds.
Is he? He definitely looks like a lighter rider.
So he's probably close to our guy live. Yeah. He's probably close to his weight.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I've almost cut out, not even trying to do that, just like I hit like a little bump under 20. It's so weird, man. It happened to me again today. It was just like, okay, on my Nikola, if I hit a bunch of like little moguls, like a little bunch of little hills, right. At any speed, it might jostle me a lot. Yeah. But I'm not worried about cutting out. The most annoying thing with the Sherman is like, if I'm not going 30 miles an hour. Okay, here's a better example. If I'm going 30 plus miles an hour and I see there's a bunch of little moguls ahead and I want to like relax so I don't jump off. Yeah. My inclination, because I had a 16-inch wheel in the past, was to like slow down a little bit so I can like bump over them, and not like get bounced off. If you do that on the Sherman and you go too low, you'll cut out.
No, for sure.
That's so weird. It's so dumb. And I wish they could fix it. I don't know that they can, but I wish they could fix that. So that's funny that you said Wheezy was doing that, because I'm like,
Isn't he gonna die?
Well, that's Wheezy's MO. Anyone that doesn't know him, he's the kid who, if he's doing something to like make you like think he's crazy, that's his thing. Was that your phone?
Possibly.
I'd rather be a phone than my audio recording telling me we're done.
We're good.
Yeah, a phone noise would be better than my recorder going, sorry, you're done.
We don't have memory. We're gone.
Right on. All right, so you've been in New York for like a week, maybe?
Almost 2 weeks now.
Almost 2 weeks?
Yeah.
What has been something you noticed about us? How many times have you ridden with New York guys before, actually? Never?
Never, because
Okay, that's good. That's good for this question.
I came here Christmas time, and I had the 16X, but nobody wanted to ride with me because I had the 16X. It's too slow. So
what have you noticed in 2 weeks of being here? What are some things you've noticed about the scene here, about the crew here?
If you're in the crew and they like you, then you're tight with them. That's what I'm saying, for sure. It's definitely not like entirely all inclusive, but it makes sense. There's so many different people out there that you can't trust everybody. You can't keep tabs on every single person. But it's definitely an interesting crew. The way that they ride and just I enjoy riding with you guys, for sure. Just how aggressive that you guys will go in traffic, because it's exciting. I used to ride with like a little cheaper electric scooter, and then I used to bicycle around through here when I was younger. But being able to translate that into electric unicycles, it's a fun time.
Did it throw you off a little bit? Like, I don't know who you first rode with.
I was fine.
Because a lot of guys come out here, and I'm not putting them down, but like the first time, I think some of the guys from San Francisco came out.
Yeah.
Like Jesse Garnier, like him and his wife came out, and you could tell like the first ride, they were like, whoa, what
this is different.
did we get into? But they're great. They're fantastic
they're awesome.
riders.
I love them. They're great people.
So eventually they figured it all out, but like it's a little jarring at first.
It is.
Look, I had to work up to that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's very interesting. Okay, and then as far as like terrain, what are some things in your head that you've packed away riding New York City terrain that you're like, oh, here I have to do this to stay alive?
Honestly, for me, it translated really well, just because I'm already used to riding like really crappy terrain if we're doing like mountain biking trails, and I'm riding at 25, 30 on just constant jumping and random washboards. In doing so, having jump pads makes such a big difference when I'm riding out here. I understand how people are riding, what confused me a lot is everybody riding soft mode. So in Vegas,
we all love soft mode here.
In Vegas, everybody rides hard mode, and a lot of people will just have that little bit of tilt back, whereas some people I've noticed are having little either flat or tilting forward. I get it, but at the same time,
do you? I don't know that I get it.
It's so what I notice is people like it because it makes it easier for them to lean forward into the pedal and have that extra bit of gravity holding them forward, because not everybody has pedal spikes and jump pads to rip the wheel forward as easily.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if that's our compensation.
I think that's what it is. If you guys had jump pads, then I think there'd be a higher likelihood of you guys using more hard mode settings for your wheels.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, the Nicola is a very unique wheel.
Yeah.
But I specifically used soft mode on the Nicola because its propensity to have like death brake wobbles.
Yeah.
So like if you're in hard mode on that thing and you just crank the brakes and you aren't able to do a bit of a turn, because you can't always. Sometimes you're like between two cars and you're going to slam on the brakes. You can't turn.
You're stuck wobble. Yeah, for sure.
Like the fact that it just lets you roll back into it saves you. So, so that's like
I could see that. Yeah, it just hides little flaws in your riding.
I think some guys too, like, I don't know about Vegas, but I tend to think, maybe wrongly, but that we're some of the first OG like riders in the whole game. Like, so there's a lot of guys here who were here like, 9-bot, SC, whatever the heck, the first
S1s and all.
Yeah, like so
wheels.
I feel like whatever was good back then that they started to feel comfortable with, they've kept potentially.
They're used to that little sag.
I could be wrong. Maybe they're murdering me right now in their head. They're like, Mickey, you're so wrong about this. But
you don't understand.
Maybe, like Chris Yim is my. I always say Chris Yim is like the best rider in New York. He's the. Silent Sentinel, to use like a little Chinese reference.
I haven't met him or read with him yet.
Also known as Grumpy Cat. So for like, if I were to paint a very sort of cinematic picture of him, it's like when I first got into riding, you'd see him ride, and the way he rides is just so effortless, you know. And then any terrain, he's not like worried about it. He's not the most padded up guy either.
Yeah.
And if you ever wanted to know how to be a better rider, you could go to him and ask him. He would probably admittedly say, I'm bad with words and I don't know how to explain it to you, but I guess I'll try.
Sure.
But so he I think he's staying with his parents in Jersey right now, but he lived on the Upper West Side. So for me, it's like, I feel like it's somewhere in mainland China where there's a big Buddha on a mountain. I forget what city it's in. And they call it the Silent Sentinel.
Yeah.
And so I think of him as that, where like, if I wanted to like know something and like, you know, go deeper in my EUC faith.
Go there to be enlightened.
I would go to him and like, I traverse to the Upper West Side and like ask him some questions. But yeah, so he's sort of like really one of the like OG guys. And so, for example, he came out to the Gateway EX, or X as I call it, demo the other day. And I have it on video, but I recorded him riding around, and then he was doing his thing. And I was like, so what do you think, you know, on camera? And he was like, I'm like, well, what about the suspension? He goes, dude, I don't care about the suspension. Yeah. And I went, yeah, I mean, riding a suspension wheel, who would care about that, right, Chris? And he was like, no, Mickey, he's convinced that however the Monster Pro will feel will be indicated from the X.
You think so?
That's what he thinks.
Okay.
So he came out to that demo. He's like, he goes, this wheel's stupid. I don't have any interest in it, but I'm curious because he wants the Monster Pro. Yeah. I'm curious what that's going to feel like.
I'm excited.
So he's convinced that whatever the X feels like, it's an indication of what the Monster Pro will feel like.
I'm really excited just to feel the torque on that Monster Pro.
Yes, correct. Well, for what it's worth, he was let down. The groundhog didn't see his shadow or whatever. Yeah. He was like, he loves the most extreme soft mode there is.
Oh God.
That's what led me to this. So he was like, this thing is so stiff, I hate it. And he was like, I'm not excited for the Monster Pro. And I'm like, there's no way it's like exactly the same. And he would probably be like, sure there is. Here's 8 reasons why. But that was his whole thing.
Yeah, we'll see how it is when it's initially accelerating. I mean,
do you think it's in the firmware? Can they make that thing accelerate smooth?
I want to say it's a firmware thing, but
right, because like a hollow bore motor is important. Like we agree, it's kind of a nice, smooth experience.
Yeah, I think it is that big portion of it having that rim weight as opposed to like this more center core of a regular like older school Gateway motor.
But there has been some problems with some of these hollow core.
Yes. With
the bearing is just. When it gets wet, it's done for.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
The V11, it's happening to a lot. I don't know of any instances on like an RS. Have you heard of any?
RS, I haven't noticed anything. If anything, it's just a little bit of motor clunking. But it's just a matter of having to retighten the motor or have to get a new motor to swap out. Cause
the no big deal. It's just a new motor.
Yeah, it happens.
Somebody was saying maybe put some like grease on the bearing itself. Might help.
I could see that. Yeah,
that might be a thing that maybe these companies they should be overloading the grease on the bearing maybe.
Yeah.
On the front end to keep water out and stuff.
That could help. But at the same time, I mean, might just need a good splash guard or just a way to redirect the water away from the bearing. But question is, how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, they can barely cool these things appropriately, so.
Right.
So what's your concern about the Monster Pro acceleration?
I'm not really worried about it. I mean, I feel like it's going to handle just like the regular Monster, and you're going to have the same amount of torque as the regular Monster, or not necessarily not the same torque, but torque in relation to having the 22-inch versus the 24-inch wheel. With the 24-inch wheel, I think you're going to end up having about the same pull. If you crank it forward, it's probably going to be the same. In my eyes, but then again, with a 3,500 watt motor,
that's the same motor as the X, right?
It's the same as the X. I'm excited to see how many people are able to make it dip out the gate.
Well, some of the weirdos here tried to make it dip at our demo, and they couldn't. Yeah. Like from zero.
Because they probably didn't have power pads to make it happen. And jump pads.
Yeah, because, they made me take the Clark pads off.
Yeah, right.
Which is so weird, because we both rode the Clark pads. Exactly. It was great. I
loved it.
My first thought, because I sort of donned myself like the suspension king here. Like I've tried them all.
Yes.
I think probably one of the first ones in America to try all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, with suspension really, you want something you can like pop yourself up with.
Yes.
You know, like that's one thing I was saying my V11 kind of lacked.
One of the problems with suspension wheels is that they still don't have jump pads, and then you're still on bumps. You're still going to be shifting because you don't have anything to keep your foot down on the pedal. That's something I notice a lot with, say, like the V11 when I first got on it and the S18 when I first got on it. My feet were still shifting when I hit bumps. Like, yes, it reduced the amount of like blow, or a little bit of the initial blow when you're coming into contact with a curb, but at the same time, with that, you're still going to slide forward or slide off. That's why I like having pedal spikes and that, again, the jump pads to hold yourself down.
Right. So I've noticed you kind of have become a little bit of a celebrity recently.
Yeah, debatable.
And I didn't actually realize this. Like, us meeting was sort of like, maybe I just don't pay attention, but I feel like a little bit just by chance that you were just coming to town, and then
cool. It was a serious coincidence.
Like, let's just hang out or whatever. And then like, I'm seeing all these videos come out about you, and then Jimmy Chang did this whole video with you and stuff.
Jimmy's cool. When he came over, we just started hanging out and setting him up with jump pads and random stuff. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think people? Again, there's not to put you down, but you're not the only person doing this kind of stuff. Why do you think that you're getting some notoriety in the community?
It's a good question. I mean, you have
good looks, probably.
Maybe, I don't know. Just an okay-looking Filipino, and then I don't know. With the Instagram, I guess I'm doing a little bit extra to just push it to people and say, hey, jump pads are pretty rad. You should check it out.
It's funny because Kuji definitely pushed jump pads, and he's made that whole video where he was like showed everybody how to jump a body of water, basically.
Yeah.
You know,
for that, I think it definitely did make a push, but then I think the hype died down from Kuji when that after those pads came out. But yeah, it's definitely a DIY type of deal for now. It's funny because you have a lot of people who end up contacting me just to set pads up and help make their own. If not,
it kind of has to be DIY, right? Because like everyone's feet, like we were talking about, you have your chucks and
My problem with sorry, Chris, but so with the Clark pads, my problem is like the one size fits all or one size fits most idea. It works for a lot of people, but at the same time, there's certain things that can be done within it. Like if you made the wedges underneath that big can in the front, because it's based off of Jericho's setup. If you made the wedge in between, then you'd be able to work multiple types of shoes to make it work, or make a jump easier.
To dissect that for a second, is he not also just ripping the pads that I keep in my Sherman a little bit? Was that his base?
In what way? What do you mean?
So if you take the Clark pad, the regular model, and you put that mirror image against the Chinese pads that I have, it's the same exact shape, other than his like somewhat beveled edges and the big base thing.
General idea is still there. I mean, the problem with that is the regular Chinese pads, they don't have anything to hold or under your instep to use as a jump pad. Yeah. Whereas the Clark pads, they give you that big can for the full lock-in to get you to be able to lift the wheel up.
But it's a little flat too. You prefer a more more angled.
I like an angled wedge. I used to do surf pads for my jump setups, but now
it's weird that would work. Like I don't understand. How did you come up with that? Because to me that seems like you might slip up and out of it.
Right. If you make it steep enough, it's going to be able to hold you in. But at the same time with that, that's why I kept it at a 45 to.
So why not have a 90 then? Why the 45?
If you have a 90, a lot of people have multiple shoes. So then if you're putting on one pair of shoes, say your Chucks, then you're going to be able to set your pad up, and then like you can put your Velcro on, and then you can rip it off and then reset it every single time you change your shoes out. Whereas if you use the 45-degree angle wedge that you make your own via exercise mat or yoga block or whatever, you take that and then you'll be able to wear whatever shoe, because if it's thicker, it's still going to be inside the wedge. If it's thinner, it's still going to be inside that wedge.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Because another reason I like the wedge is when you're pulling it up, your toes can't move as much. Then you can use those toes and then hold the wheel in place, keep it level while you're in the air, and have that extra control.
Gotcha. Okay, so I think one of the last things I wanted to ask you is, I don't have a number for it, but
Sure.
what are some like tips or tricks that you would send off into the universe to people who want to, say let's pretend you're talking to the New York crowd who are used to just steamrolling at high speed, but they're like, you know what, I'm kind of getting over that, and I want to become a little more technical rider, and I want to make some. So somebody who wants to make some DIY pads, that's one thing, but what are tips and tricks you would give them to learning how to become a more technical rider?
Learn how to become a technical rider, period. It starts off with carving. Learn where the edges of the pedals are when you're coming in contact with the ground. So as you're on a bank, you want to know where the pedals are going to scratch, and then be able to manage that scraping safely. So you learn that. Find a gravel path and just play on it.
Aren't you going to slip out if you're on the gravel path?
Yeah, that's the same.
So that's what you want.
With that, yeah, you want a little bit of suck. So
okay.
You want to struggle a little bit more. Put yourself onto random uncomfortable terrain. If you want to get into jumping, definitely you have to make jump pads to make that happen. You can pull your legs up with a Russian pad or whatever extra friction on a regular power pad. But at the same time, if you want like better output and just better ergonomics, then you want to create a jump pad like a 45-degree angle wedge, maybe like by like 2 inches wide. That's fine. You can buy the 2-piece surf pads if you want. If you're lazy, then just go on Amazon. I get mine off Punt Surfs, and then it's a Punt Surf 2-piece surf stomp pad that you put on the back of a surfboard. You just take those, trim them down, and then just put them right above where your instep's going to making contact. So then you have those.
So like if you're playing soccer, like right on top of your foot.
Right on top of your foot, close to your
Gotcha.
ankle. That's you get that done, and then the pedal spikes, those make another huge difference. I saw so many people with just naked wheels. I'm like, no, what are you doing, please? There's so much more that you can do with these.
Well, okay, so again, it's just kind of a steamroll wheel,
Yes.
but my Sherman has like the vicious grip tape, which I feel like
It's
a
not
little bit of a
it's
step
not
up.
enough.
It's a bit of a step up.
Yeah.
Hang on, we're having some issues.
Yeah,
We're
this
just
is a little bit of droopy.
my other one didn't come in the mail yet, so
Yeah, that's fine. There we go. We'll take it.
Okay, so my vicious is not enough. So if I were to put some spikes up through that probably would help me keep a little more.
For sure.
Especially if I hit some awful washboards or something. Even if I'm just steamrolling around town.
Because that little bit of vibration is going to be shifting your foot no matter how heavy your
now, is that
grip tape is.
Is that going to tear up my shoes?
It depends on the types of spikes you're using. If you're using, like, say, Merlin spikes, he makes his for, like, riding in the mud, and they're serious grip. I recommend them for some people who are doing, like, the more serious off-roading, not constantly having to worry about their shoes. But if you do worry about your shoes and you want something more simple, what I do is...
Your carpet.
You take a carpet, like roller carpet mat, and then flip it over, trim it, whatever you need. And then after that, just use either hot glue or like a really heavy, like E6000. That's what I normally use for my setups.
So you're putting a glue that's heavy enough, but enough where you can take it off later.
Right. What I do is I put it directly on top of the original grip tape. So then.
So should I sand down my vicious to do this?
Nope. You just throw it right on top of the grip, on top of the
Really?
vicious.
Yeah. But there's so much like.
It'll work. The glue will work around the groove, all around the all the
peaks and
all
valleys.
The knobby. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you used hot glue or what?
I used to use hot glue. E6000 is like a big,
E6000.
heavier, gunky glue.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much just any heavy glue will end up doing the job. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, so with the carpet spikes, usually they're like maybe a centimeter tall. I'll end up taking the same tin snips that I used to cut them down to trim them to maybe like 2 millimeters, if that. And then that's going to be a huge world of difference when you're riding, because when you're hitting bumps, then you're not shifting nearly as much, and then you can have a more reliable placement on your feet.
So the first thing I thought was, a lot of times, maybe it's just a bad habit I have, but when I'm mounting my wheel, I always have my right foot is on, and then my left foot comes up after.
Yes.
My right foot's always planted just fine. My left foot just pops up, and it's like 98% there, and then it's no big deal because I completely am fine. Like at 40 miles an hour, I'll readjust my foot
For sure.
seems like it's a little bit more difficult situation with spikes.
It's really not, because what happens is when you have the jump pads, then once you find that place and then you just push your foot forward into that jump pad.
Oh, you just kind of
you're already there.
You go into the garage basically.
Into
your car fits right in there.
You find your happy place and you're good.
Okay, so all right. I don't know that I'll eventually like keep on my Sherman specifically like jump pads, but I am interested in more traction.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the current pads I have, I can lower them a bit.
Yes.
And I could actually carve away. At that thing.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you have foam. You can easily make your own if you wanted to.
Right, exactly.
And then just Velcro it on, and then just throw them on when you want them. Take them off.
So even if I'm not jumping, do you think it's a good idea if I'm just steamrolling around town to create these 45-degree angle jump pads?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes it a good idea. It just makes it safer overall, because there's. It's
fascinating because so many times, over the years, like famously, my buddy Chris and I, who run everywhere. Yeah. We were riding in downtown Brooklyn, and a guy was like, "What are those things?" The typical questions, and was like, "Man, I could never ride that." You're like, "Okay, shut up, dude." Sure. And then it was like, "Well, if I did, I'd have to be strapped. I'd have to be strapped in." He kept saying strapped, and we were like, "That's hilarious," because I would never want to feel tied to it. Yeah. But you're sort of suggesting something that's pretty close to strapped.
Not entirely strapped. So another reason that I don't like the full 90-degree jump pad is because. If I ever want to pull my leg out, then that 45-degree allows me to slip out of it anytime. And yeah. And on top of that, with my power pads are never like too wide, whereas usually when I make my pads, then I'll probably have like an inch of extra material to be able to crank the wheel forward. It's not like the full commit, like at least like 3 inches off of the body of the wheel to never be able to let your leg slip past it.
Right. Well, interesting because of those. I don't know that I've found the perfect ones yet, but I've landed on those Chinese pads for now. Yeah. Mainly because I paid a pretty penny for them.
Yeah, right. So it's like $100 just for those.
Yeah. Well, if you buy them from Amazon.
Yeah.
It's like 90 or something. But so the Russian pads, I think, can be thinner.
Yes.
They have ones you can fill to your heart's content.
Yeah.
So potentially, maybe in the future, if I got rid of those, I could do a Russian pad. A little thinner, and then create a 45 situation underneath it.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, and then get maybe some carpet.
Exactly, little carpet spikes. Yeah,
I think also, to be fair, if we're honest, people are afraid of uglying their wheel.
Oh no, I totally understand when people don't want to make their stuff.
Everyone
ugly.
sees your wheel and goes, "Whoa,
this is some Frankenstein looking."
And then they see you do a thing, and they're like,
"Okay, that kind of makes sense now."
Oh, interesting.
I'm willing to exchange my pretty looks for that thing.
Yeah, I think I think there's definitely a huge trade-off people in their heads think about when it comes to that, especially if they're not. Look, I think 80 to 90% of the people who ride are not in that sort of more extreme category.
A bunch of casuals.
I mean, to be fair, like hopefully I'm kind of doing it right, but my YouTube channel was started because I feel like there's a lot of newer riders. It's dedicated to new people.
It's reaching out to those people who aren't like directly in the know with the community.
I feel like I win with my YouTube channel if I get a comment like, "I'm a new rider. This has been very helpful."
Yeah,
right?
that's a great feeling. I love it.
That's where I want it to stay. There's a lot of the New York riders who are like super experienced and they've hundreds of thousands of miles under their belt. They're like. I don't really dig your channel. I'm like, that's fine.
Cool.
It's not exactly geared towards you.
Yeah,
exactly. And you might even have different opinions.
You can't make everybody happy.
Yeah. So, but anyways, the point is, I think that there's a lot of people who are not in this category, but I think it's safe to say, having you here today, it's not a big jump, and it can make you a little bit safer. It can be a little more interesting of a ride, a little more fun.
Keeps it consistent.
I think there's a lot of people who probably are. Mirroring the sentiment that I've had here in New York, where there's like this sort of like wanderlust to ride to nowhere. Yeah. Where it's like we do these group rides. Like in New York, it's like every night,
all
right?
The time, yeah.
So eventually, when people come here, they love it, right? Because if you're on vacay, you're like, I just want to ride all the time.
Exactly. It's always available.
But then it becomes like every night, it's like, where are we riding? Oh, to Central Park and back. Oh, I've done that the last 360 days. Or they'll just go long distances. Yeah. That's not my steez. I don't want to go 100 miles on my wheel. So this is a really interesting way to sort of spice up your riding experience.
Ride,
So we can do some spikes or carpet pad situation for the bottom.
There's some people you can go to a couple companies. So like Kingsong, if you have a 16X, then you can buy the pre-made metal spikes. We got our buddy Merlin Fish. He makes his own metal spikes.
Is he on Instagram?
I don't know if he's on Instagram, but
how's he selling?
It's if you know him, then he'll hook you up.
Oh, we need to get over this. The whole community is made of this kind of nonsense.
It's just how it is.
It's not that hard. Just get a little thing.
It is, but at the same time, you have to make pads for every single person who looks for it, and then if you have enough outreach, then you have to.
Well, you're plugging him on the show, man.
That's true. I'm sorry, Merlin. Love you, Merlin, but
if he wants some business, I want to try to help him out.
Exactly.
We'll try to find something.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
All right, so some spike situation, then sort of next key after that is like a 45-degree angle foam.
Yeah,
instep wedge.
Heavy foam wedge. If it's too soft, then it'll still be able to wobble underneath you, or
right.
the wheel's still going to be wobbling.
What do you make it? I had a yoga block.
Right, yoga block works fine.
Okay.
But I use exercise mats, or like the little puzzle piece mats, and then I'll just cut them down to whatever size needed to be, and then
like glue them together.
Yeah, or I'll use the double-sided tape. Like I'll use double-sided tape for lumber. Like to use stuff you'd use like in a CNC machine, and then on top of that I'll throw duct tape or whatever on top of it. If you want more lock or
again, not gonna be pretty.
It's not gonna be pretty at all. But if you want it slightly prettier, then use a yoga block, and then when you mount that to the body, then use the double-sided tape, or you can use Velcro if you want. But at the same time, the problem with Velcro is that it has a little bit of wiggle, and then as it wiggles, then it has a higher likelihood of ripping off.
Yes, we noticed that this evening.
Yeah. We were throwing some
just messing around
on a V11, and then it ended up falling off like two
jumped in the air, and I was like, oh crap.
Oh, that's gone. Yeah.
And all right, and then I guess one step up, that would be just a slimmer type of power pad in addition if you wanted it to help you.
Yeah, not like the
forward and brake a little bit.
It doesn't have to be the full commit, but even just that little nub on there, and then.
So that guy EUC guy out of the Netherlands somewhere, Scandinavian country. His little is that fine? He just like little fins.
Oh, the fins, yeah, they work. They work for sure.
Yeah, okay.
That one, and sometimes people underestimate the brake pads, but
I feel like that's more important on the Sherman.
Yeah, it's for a lot of wheels. It makes it so much more stable.
I've almost
when you're
fallen
braking.
off a couple times.
Oh, God.
It's just so much power and so much weight. That's
it's a
the
lot
thing.
of weight. Yeah,
it's not like an MSX,
Yeah, you have to crank it back. Same with the EX. The EX without proper pads is not going to be a good time.
Well, like we said, everyone who came to the demo, not everyone, but a lot of people were like, it lacks stopping power.
Yeah.
I kind of agree. Yes, it could be better.
Yes.
I think like the MSP is better, but as we said, it has everything to do with the fact that's an 84-pound wheel.
Right.
But if you have like Clark pads on there, shout out to Clark.
Let's go, Clark.
Then it really helped, because that's what I had when I was doing my tests.
Yeah, when I was playing with it, we had the Clark pads, and it was a good time.
Yeah. So definitely braking is just as important, if not more, than the. Yeah. On my Chinese pads, I feel like I don't need the acceleration part of it, like the forward lean, like the forward part, like
the forward part. I could see that, but on the Sherman,
I'm not using
on the Sherman
that much.
Specifically.
Yeah, I'm not using it that much.
Right.
It's a light push in.
That's another reason. Like when I got those same Chinese pads, I ended up cutting them down to make the front part level with the back part. Like as soon as
the thickness.
Yeah, the thickness. So as soon as I got on it, I hated it because I couldn't let my leg slip past it when I'm doing like a really tight turn. Mm-hmm. So then on the spot when I was in the parking lot at the hub, I ended up just pulling out my knife and then just chopped it down.
Well, that's the problem I have. I'm considering doing it as well because like when I hit a big bump, like a big speed bump or even just like a washboard or whatever, I need my legs to be able to just flex like a jockey and bend forward. Exactly. And those things make it like
it
weird.
Keeps you from being able to do that.
Yeah, it's like
it's a bow for you.
So I have to remember to just like jut out super wide.
Yeah, you're stuck like bowing forward rather than just opening up your legs a tiny bit.
So we'll see. I might stick with those pads. I just feel like the angle is too rounded on those two. Like, so if I were to cut it in half, and make the thickness less, so when it comes from the flat to jut out, it's curved. I kind of want a 90, so there's a little bit more
more grip
that I can dig into that corner.
Yes,
because I found with certain shin guards that I have, they just slip right out.
That's where,
even with the thickness they are now.
That's where you can solve it with the DKL, the skateboard grip. It's like the rubber skateboard grip.
Yeah, you gave me some and you took it back.
I took a tiny sliver back.
I think you took it out of the part that the front
the
piece.
important part? Oh.
It's in the. I can completely move it, but
we can.
It was I have a lot on the sides, but there's like nothing in the front, so I'm like, oh,
did I take the front? I thought I took only the bottom sliver.
To be fair, it was dark. I don't remember.
They might have fallen off also. But
I doubt that
because they weren't like there's two tiny slivers that we put on the front end, and then they might have peeled off as we were riding. But the general premise of it is you get extra grip on the pad no matter what you have. Like say for my jump pads, I end up taking the same DKL skateboard grip, and then I'll throw it on top of whatever neoprene that I set down, because that extra friction ends up giving you extra lock in on your leg to crank it up or pull it forward or back.
I tried that with I had like what's on the V11 out there, that like thin neoprene stuff. Right. I had that on there literally, but it just rips apart.
It tears.
So it was useless. I took it off.
I end up having to throw duct tape on top of that, and then if not duct tape, then just throw on that skateboard grip.
Yeah, that's a good tip right there.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's kind of a lot of the interesting little tips on that. What were you gonna say?
I mean, there's definitely more that could be talked about, but at the same time, it's the question of how much do people want to hear us right now?
Well, the floor is open. What else would you like to say on the subject?
What to say? I mean, as far as like technical riding, there's little details with, say, even turning.
Go for it.
Again, like that guiding with the toe.
If you inner toe.
Inner toe.
Okay.
That's generally how it should be. But then with pedal dip, you have to guide with the outer toe, which is stupid. But another thing that you would end up having to note is on a heavy, like a wide turn.
So hold on, let's just back it up. So if someone who is like brand new, so maybe someone who watches my YouTube channel who's come to this podcast needs to know step one, what are we talking about here?
Okay, so we're talking about longer turns where you have to kind of bank and then get the wheel riding at an angle and keeping it from dipping while you're trying to maintain like an optimal speed. So if with a M Super Pro, like a torque version, you would want to guide with your left toe and then right heel. So this is on the assumption of that we're doing a long left turn or a short left turn. Guide with the left toe, and then right heel. And then on top of that, I would take...
Are you putting more pressure on the toe or the heel or the same?
They're even.
Okay.
But, or more so on... Yeah,
so your body is leaning into the turn.
Right.
You're putting pressure on your left toe and your right heel evenly.
The biggest thing that, on top of that, is your leg, the way it's pinning on the body. So if you look at where your pedal hangers are sitting on the wheel, you create a line, like a vertical line from that. And then that point on the top edge of the wheel is where you should be resting your...
outer leg?
The outer leg, the bigger portion of your leg, and pressing against that portion, because your wheel wants to stay upright. And then with it trying to stay upright, then if it's like pinned against your leg, it's not going to be wobbling. Where if your leg is too far forward, too far back, then you have a higher likelihood of wobbling while you're at that turn. It's those little details that make such a big difference when you're riding.
It's a more expounded thing on or view on what I had said in one of my videos about like being a better rider. Was like using the outer leg to help pull you over.
It's figuring out that positioning where it'll keep you in that happy place where you're not.
All right. So what about the guys who? Now I do this on my Sherman, but a lot of guys in New York would say, no. Drop your inner heel and let the leg lock against your inner leg, and then let your right leg sort of like get up on that toe. Like
for
VT
for a turn?
In a turn, if you watch the profile I did on VT, he talks about it all the time anyways, but a left turn, right?
Left turn. Okay.
So his left heel is dipping down and putting a lot of pressure on that, and his right outer leg, he goes up on his toe. He's standing on his toe, and so he's pushing down on the heel, so it's cranking it to the left, right? So this other one is barely putting any pressure out here, but it's just like it's locked against his inner leg.
Right. Yeah. What I'm seeing from that. So if you're on that turn, say if the wheel needs to like stay at maybe a 45-degree angle to not be encouraged to lean outwards or inwards, then that's when you'd be able to stay even with the pedals, not having to worry too much about pressure on the wheel. If my assumption right now is that stepping in on the inside of that 45, you end up having to use the right toe to reduce the amount of pedal dip, and then on top of that you're using the left foot to still be able to guide and maintain the original turn.
Do you think there's a problem with doing it that way?
It's really situational, so it's not bad. it really depends on the turn, because there's so many different situations. But my thoughts on it is, if you're underneath that midpoint where the wheel wants to lean, like stand up on you, then if you're on the inside of that turn, on the inside of the angle, then you want to use that same style that VT's talking about. But then if your wheel is a little bit on the outside of that, then I would go towards my style, where you're pinning the outer leg. It's really the same thing, but it's just different portions of that turn that would
Gotcha.
that alter your position.
I mean, you essentially can use that method, the heel toe type method, to actually accelerate pretty fast.
Exactly, yeah.
If you're trying to do a strong like torque acceleration.
Yeah.
Just going back and forth between the two.
Yeah. So you see a lot of people doing that, the heel toe riding.
Chris Yim is like a very exaggerated version of that.
Okay. I can
So
see
if
that.
you ever see a video of him riding, like, it's so much so that I've played with it a bit. I'm not quite in his camp, but his arms are like doing a lot of work too. It's like he's doing like
nice
this whole thing.
Pop locking while he's going.
Yeah, a little bit. I bet you if you question him on it, he'd be like, "What? I didn't even notice."
Yeah. It's fun seeing how people's arms move while they're riding.
Yeah.
You have the people who just stand up straight and they're just riding
The
straight
zombie
forward,
riders,
just
yeah.
complete zombie. And then you have the people who are just swinging their arms around as they're going, just allowing their arms to swing along the momentum of their body in the wheel.
Yeah, I think I'd probably sit close to that camp.
Yeah.
Then you have the guys who do this weirdness.
Right, who are just full dancing, doing whatever they want.
All right. Is there another tip you have about more technical riding?
Technical riding tips.
Yeah, so we touched on turning and the whole setup and everything.
If we're talking about, say, like
Okay, how about this? When you're
tire PSI.
Okay,
That's a thing. So if you're starting to jump, bring your tire PSI up, please, because if you have it too low, you're gonna dent your rim.
That's true, but what's too low?
Too low is like 15, 20.
Oh, jeez.
There's so many.
Of course.
So many
Okay,
riders do
let's
that.
bring it back to me. I never go below 35 on any wheel.
Same.
So that's fine.
Right.
How high would you go? Probably wheel specific, obviously, but
Wheel specific, but for me, every single wheel I have, I throw it at 40.
40. Okay.
Yeah, 40 is my happy spot.
There's some wheels that a lot of people would argue you couldn't, like the Nikola. I think at 40 becomes a beach ball.
Yes.
But 35 is fine.
Yeah, 35 is fine. I like having the higher PSI because it shows your flaws in your riding, and if you're making like any mistakes with your stance, then you'll notice it with your wobble or whatever other issues.
Fascinating concept.
So I like that.
Shows your flaws.
Exactly. That's how it is. I mean,
okay.
So that if I'm doing,
so everybody crank it to 60 psi.
Crank to 60 and test if you're good or not.
Yeah, I think that's what Tarzan does all the time, and
yeah.
I think we've learned that that's a bad idea.
Oh no! When you do that, then you have all that so much less traction.
It's funny because people have been like, "Oh, hasn't Tarzan cut out on the Sherman multiple times?" I'm like, "Nope, he's never cut out,
right?
To my knowledge. Well, maybe recently, but he just would crank it to 60.
Yeah, you end up bouncing.
Oh my gosh, that's literally, you've probably seen the videos online. Yeah. It's bounced like higher than his chest.
It's so sketchy, but it works for some people. I mean, I understand why you're riding 15, 20 because it's a smooth ride.
I have never gone that low, not intentionally.
It's smooth, but I hate it. Because
it's mushy, right?
I feel babied.
Yeah, it's mushy, and I feel like you can't really go. Well, it comes back to the New York thing, I guess. Yeah. You can't go as fast as you need. Like, you got to try so much harder to go fast.
You're burning battery.
Ooh, I didn't even think of that.
Battery is another factor for sure.
I was just thinking about my own calories.
If you weigh like 120 or something light, then it's not something to worry about too much. But at the same time, you start hitting bumps, then you hit any curb, or if you have to ghost your wheel and then you hit a curb, then you're automatically gonna destroy your rim.
Yeah, that's I think a lot of new people ask me that question a lot, and it's like, I always tell them I wouldn't go below 35 because of the potential bent rim situation.
Exactly. So when people first start, and I know they're riding only maybe like 15, 20 miles an hour, then sure, I'll let them go at like 35 psi or 30 psi. But then after they start getting like more used to riding and all that, then I'll definitely try to push them to go with 35, 40, because I want them to not have to worry about their rim and
people should check their PSI. I check mine weekly.
I check it depending on where I'm going. So if I'm doing like a tiny short course, like time trial or something like that, I'll drop it down to like 25 just to have that extra grip and be able to maintain turns.
Did you do that at the Black Cobra rally?
I dropped it down to maybe 25, 30 around that, because definitely I was riding like a slick street tire, and
Yeah,
it
of
was
course.
like maybe like 3-4 inches of dirt.
It was like, from what I heard, like Greyhound.
It was
thick.
absurd. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, for sure.
if
Like,
you've ever been on a Greyhound track, it's just the weirdest thing. It's like
Yeah.
quicksand.
so mushy. That was one of the things I wish I brought a knobby, because if I brought a knobby tire and threw that on the RS, then I don't think
Is there
anybody.
space to
I don't
put a
think
knobby on that?
Yeah, there is.
There is?
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just
Um,
never know
Yeah,
with
that
certain
is-
gotways.
there's a decent amount of clearance on that thing. Like, say for the MSP, you're gonna have to grind away at the tire a little bit, and then just hit it with a belt grinder or angle grinder. But if on the RS, it looks like there's a lot more clearance on that thing.
Gotcha.
Probably like maybe an extra 1/4 inch.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, if you're jumping,
Yes.
what is the technique to, once you let's say you get the whole pad set up, what's
Okay.
the technique to, say, jump up a curb, not bonk it, but jump
Okay.
up a curb?
So jumping up a curb, generally you'd want to get like not a full squat. Maybe your squat should be less than 45 degrees, in my opinion. Unless you have like really explosive muscles, then go down all the way if you want. But generally, maybe 30 degrees is a good point, and then from there fully extend, and then once you're in the air and once you leave the ground, then you can pull your legs up in toward yourself while you're maintaining the level angle. Because if you use your abs and then crank the wheel into yourself, then you'll be able to get more output for the jump, and you'll be able to clear more.
Might be worth noting, you should stretch a little bit
do some
first.
stretch, please,
And
hydrate.
And squeeze your abs.
Yes.
When you're doing this. Don't
Yeah,
do
yeah,
what
yeah.
I did.
Just cramp.
I just decided to just screw around all day one day, and then I was like not tightening my abs, and then I definitely pulled them.
Yeah, definitely do a little bit of stretching prior to, or a little bit of warm up. But yeah, when you, as soon as you jump,
Maybe the keto diet or something.
maybe.
Something.
But yeah, when you pull the wheel up, just use your abs and kind of like do a little crunch to
Mhm.
bring the wheel up towards you. Because when you're able to pull the wheel up with you, it's not necessarily just having to worry about the initial just jump, but you'll be able to lift the wheel over whatever extra thing you're going to be clearing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's less fear of having to hit the curb that you're trying to avoid altogether.
Right.
Mm.
So working your way up to like bigger and bigger jumps, what's
Yes.
sort of the progression? Like, so when you were here outside the Navy Yard,
Sure.
there was like 2 parking stops
Yes.
that you were like, I think I can jump that, and I was
think
like,
I
you're
can.
you're nuts. And then I think you did like maybe one run between them
Yeah.
to see. You're like,
In
okay,
betwixt.
I think I got it.
Yeah.
And then you cleared them.
Right.
What's progression for someone kind of new to this to figure out how they can clear like a longer distance? Or,
Okay. Yeah. So usually what I have people do is take a twig. If not a twig, then find like a random crock on the street. Try
Did you say croc?
crack.
Crack.
So, yeah. Sorry. But yeah.
Crocodile?
Yeah. Right. Find a crocodile and send it. But yeah, you take a little crack on the street or random bump or
Mhm.
whatever you want.
Marker of choice.
Yeah, marker of choice. So then you just start hopping over that. If you want to take a stick and then try to clear that, and without having to touch it, then that could be a good marker or good way of judging whether or not you actually cleared it or not.
You might need a friend to tell you if you cleared
Exactly, that too. You could record yourself. You could prop your phone out and then.
it. Right. Be
look at-
careful when you do
look at
that,
your
though.
failure.
Don't let someone steal your phone.
Yeah, don't let people judge you also. Or you can judge yourself.
I
off
feel
of-
like judgment's out the window once you get on one of these.
That's true. But yeah, once you're able to clear a line, then take
So is
two
it just speed? So if I want to, like,
Yes.
famously, you did this in front of me, but then Coogee
Sure.
jumped that like body of water, which
Yeah.
to a lot of people is a mind blow.
Okay.
Is that just so once you've learned to get enough height,
Mhm.
it's just speed? So once you get
Yes.
your height, you're just cruising through
So what's
it.
interesting is after a certain speed, then you start losing efficiency because you're trying to maintain the speed, and at the same time you're trying not to eat it while you're jumping. So what I've found is maybe like 20 miles per hour is pretty optimal for getting good height, but it depends on what you're trying to do. Say if I'm
So,
doing like
Not too fast, not too slow.
yeah, exactly. You go too fast, then you're going to be trying too hard to maintain speed to be able to jump. You go too slow, you're not going to be able to get as much horizontal distance cleared
Mhm.
to be able to jump over whatever. But yeah, you just figure out the happy place of your peak jump.
I wonder, like, I'm so curious to know if Coogee was ever scared, like, that little body of water, like
yes.
near the mall or wherever
I'm sure he did a couple practice runs, like
yeah. Like I wonder, like the first one, did he ever miss? Yeah. And then it was like
goes in directly
quickly
into the
just reached backwards and grabbed his MSX,
right.
or like
just
did he clear it and then like to himself go, thank God.
Yeah, I'm sure he got his practice in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, pretty much start with 2 small stakes or something, little tiny markers. Once you clear those, then put a rock down, something that you don't have to worry too much about if you end up landing on top of it. And then just work your way up. I mean, say again with Jimmy Chang, teaching him how to jump. We started off with.
Did he get good?
Yeah, he was decent.
I didn't really see.
Yeah, he cleared over parking block, no issue. At the
what
end
wheel was he using?
He was borrowing a buddy's MSP torque.
Okay.
Yeah. So then
seems to be pretty optimal. You might want to venture down that road towards that shape, that style, that weight.
Yeah. So yeah, like what's nice about the 18-inch by 3 wheel is that it's not too light. Where say like if you're using like an M10 or if you're using a
let's not use that example.
Kind of yeah, for sure. Well, if you're using a tiny
Kevin clearly just spanked one.
Yeah, right. But yeah, pretty much when you have a smaller wheel, then it spins up way too fast. If the pedal angle is, or if you're dipping the wheel forward too much, then it's going to spin out too fast, and then you end up having like a really bad landing. Another thing to note when you're jumping is the quieter the landing, the better.
And you told me when you're hopping over, when you're landing, you want to kind of like lean forward a little bit. A
little bit forward that helps. If you lean too far back, then it ends up getting the wheel to start reversing, and then you end up on a skid, and then if your wheel doesn't have enough torque, then you have a higher likelihood of cutting out.
Right.
So
a little skid.
Yeah.
Mildly scary.
Yeah. So
a lot of skid, very scary.
Very scary. So generally, you just want to make sure that the rotation of the wheel is still adjusting to the speed that you're going. So like, if you're at like whatever cruising, like say 4 miles an hour, then you want to keep the wheel running at maybe like a 4 mile an hour pace when you're landing. But with that, it takes time. You'll figure out that little happy space in between.
Do you think I could put Clark pads on my Nikola?
Yeah, for sure. Easy.
Would potentially help?
Yeah. Make a huge difference.
Because I'm definitely looking to see which of my wheels I can beat up.
Oh, Nikola's great. It's a tank.
Yeah.
The Vegas Nikolas, they eat so much damage, and then they still ride perfectly, like it's day one.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could jump with a Nikola for sure. It's a little chunky for my joy of technical riding, but yeah, it'll do its job. The pedal clearance is a little lower, so then that's something to note. But then again, if you're just jumping and clearing things, you don't have to worry about it as much.
So is there a wheel you would say, aside from the M10-3, probably a bad idea to, or a
V5F, don't do it.
Okay. Maybe probably even the V8F?
V8F, you could.
It's a 1,000-watt motor.
The most that I would do with a V8F is jump up a curb.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be able to not have to worry about having to find the ramp.
But there's a reason why Phantomus in Russia is using an MSX.
He's using an MSX, but that thing's also heavily modded, where it's like plates on the inside. He's got.
Really, I didn't know this.
Yeah, there's a lot of like random internal mods that they've done for
the Russians are awesome at that.
It's great. I love it.
They've taken MSXs and 18XLs and mixed them.
Yeah,
and have these bizarre hybrid. Right? You're like, what is this Frankenstein?
Like I recently got some plates for my Monster. It goes. You mount the plate on the inside of the pedal hanger, and then that sits in between the pedal hanger and the motor. And then doing so, when you're standing on it, it applies extra pressure onto the inner shell, and then with that, it reduces the amount of stress on the inner shell, so then it'll save it for a little bit longer of a period. Just for
that's
longevity.
always like everyone's scare is like having to replace the inner shell
of a Monster, especially.
Any wheel, it just sounds awful. The Nikola, actually, I would rather do a Monster than a Nikola.
Yes.
The Nikola is tough for a reason, but pretty annoying. Like changing a battery out or changing a control board is relatively easy.
That's not hard at all.
Yeah.
Even if you have to like do the horizontal board to the vertical, it's not bad.
And look, a tire change is relatively easy on that. But
yeah.
Beyond that, like I had a wreck where the front console got broke. whatever they call that the middle part.
It's annoying. Yeah.
That was hell.
Yeah, because you have to do the full tear down and
all you're trying to do is not tear it down all the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're like, how can I cut a corner?
Minimalistic. That's why I love the RS so much, because especially with the new hollow motor, it's just using more screws. So 8 screws rather than having to get a 24 millimeter socket wrench with a slot cut into it, just to be able to undo the motor side wire.
I forgot. You're not going to need that anymore.
You won't. Not at all. It's great. Like now, whenever I'm riding, I end up bringing I have like a little gyroscopic screwdriver. I love that thing. But pretty much, I bring that, and then just a couple hex heads and whatever little packet of different bits.
Gotcha.
I bring that. I need to start bringing like a little rod to start tapping out the pedal hangers, or the pedal axles.
If you're a real man, you could use your pinky.
You could, but it's a little hard.
Well, I carry Allen wrenches, and that works pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I carry like a little M10. What was it? The Crank Boys, the little multi-tool. This one over yonder.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that one's a good time. But at the same time, if you want power to bring everything apart.
I've used some of this before, and yours looks a lot tighter than mine. But I felt like if I really need to crank something, I need just a full
for
Allen
sure.
wrench or screwdriver or whatever.
This will take days to get a wheel apart.
Yeah, for sure.
So I usually just bring that little screwdriver, and it makes a difference.
So you keep that little pouch. You're not doing a backpack situation, because a lot of guys in New York have a whole backpack.
I do a backpack.
You do? Okay.
It depends on the day. So if I'm doing like a general cruise where I'm not having to worry about working on anybody's wheel, like in the meantime while I'm riding, then I'll just use a little pouch. So I have a pouch like that. Okay.
I'm considering like adopting that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, oftentimes I'm shopping or something. I need the bag, but we have found it's kind of stupid. But if you were to ride, for example, where we play bike polo, EUC polo.
Yeah.
Chris rode to go get something from the bodega, and he had no helmet on, no bag on, which he normally has the whole get up.
Right.
And he zoomed by some people, they went, whoa. But later he went to do the same thing again and had his whole get up on, and people were like, F you, dude. Get out of here. Like, it was weird. People were impressed. So I think there's a different persona if you're not so, at least here in New York, because we have the delivery drivers and stuff.
Exactly.
So people think you're like a delivery driver. That has happened to me.
Yeah.
I went to my friend's apartment. He lives like on the Upper East Side in like a hoity-toity place.
Uber Eats?
This happened that there's like the 3 like security guards. When I rolled up to his apartment place, the building, they went, yeah, you got to go around back. And I went, huh? Before nothing was said, but they just walked out and said this to me. And I went, oh, is the front closed? And they went, to you it is. And I went, what is going on here? Is this
the way I look?
Yeah, what is this? and I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm just here to see my friend. And they went, oh, you're not Uber Eats? And I was like,
you're not a delivery driver.
Dear Lord.
Yeah.
So it's a thing. So anyway, so you carry that little side pack.
Yeah, so this little pack, let's do a little pocket dump for all the EDC lovers. So I got my mask. I've got an extra mask in case anybody forgets. I've got the Crank Boys.
That's nice. You're caring for someone else.
I care. So the M10, or the Crank Boys M10 multi-tool. I keep 2 of these little rear tail lights, and then from Nog. They're a good time. They do their job. What do we got?
What would you do with those, since they're just free? Yeah.
So normally I'll take them and then attach them to my holsters, and then just run them off the back of myself while I'm riding.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
because you don't have a backpack on.
Exactly. I generally ride with a backpack, but yeah, it depends on the day. So you got those up front, and then we've got in the main pouch, we've got my moto gloves.
Do you not wear wrist guards?
So with I need to add some sliders onto this one. Like, it comes with little, like, more on the...
Can I see? Is it a Nox?
It's almost like a Nox. I mean, it's half Nox.
Oh, yeah.
So you have the one portion of it that's covering.
A third of a Nox.
Exactly. So what I did on my other ones, the One Protect gloves? Mm-mm. So they have a puck right on the whole wrist. It covers this whole, or not the wrist, but this whole area on the bottom by your palm. That one I stitched in some Velcro to be able to stick those things on. I have yet to do that with these. Yeah, just moto gloves right now.
Well, you could steal my idea, which is I have lighter moto gloves than those.
Okay.
And I took the wrist guards that eWheel sends everyone for free.
And then you just run them on top.
No.
Okay.
I went one step further. I did that for a little while. I
Yeah.
just took it to a local place, and I had them grommet it to the actual gloves.
Nice. I like that.
And I kept. It's a little rough.
Yeah.
I'll show you later. But I
Yeah.
kept some of the inner padding underneath it, so I just cut the padding around it. So it's kind of
Okay.
rough, but because I really believe that extra padding is going to help.
Yeah, for sure.
When you slide out,
Reduces a little bit of suck, for sure.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you're not going to bruise your hand.
Yeah.
So I just did that. So I think that's a great idea. Like keep
Yeah.
the moto gloves that you like,
Exactly.
and then just grommet that down.
Just tack
I
on
took it to a
the-
place here in the garment district, and it was like $20.
Cool. Yeah.
3
Just
grommets.
hit up a random tailor and then see what he can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on top of that, I've got a little mirror that I added a little hair tie on the back of.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm riding...
Put it on your thumb.
Yeah, so I'll throw it on my thumb. And then along with that, I have the Pebble time. So I
Android
mount
users.
that directly onto my watch, yeah. So then, yeah, if I need my mirror, then I'll just throw it onto here, and then I'll be good to go.
Gotcha.
So then you can see everything behind you. It's
I like your
easy.
gloves. They look pretty hardy.
They work. They
When I
definitely work.
decided to upgrade mine, because those were my first test runs, so they're kind of starting to wear a little bit. So
Yeah.
I might get something a little more heavy duty.
Yeah, I used to use the little Dionysi gloves, but then I ended up going to these things after. Yeah, and on top of that, I just have a little power bank to charge my phone or charge
Right.
charge the Pebble time or charge whatever lights if need be.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's
And then you've
pretty
got
much it.
the famous holster situation.
Oh, yeah, or on top of that, also with the bag, I've got a little timber bell.
Oh, right.
So
I
then,
noticed
yeah,
that.
it's a little mountain bike bell, so then I'll release it and then just do the little jingly stuff if I'm riding. So
Useless in New York.
it's useless. I mean, if there's a bicycle rider, and then I can use that behind them while I'm passing them to say like, "Hey, I'm behind you," and definitely gonna
Not a bad
book it
idea,
past
though,
you.
for that.
Yeah, it's gentle. It's nice, especially in Vegas too. So if you have somebody who's completely unsuspecting of you coming behind them because you're flying at 20, 30 miles an hour behind them, you pull that thing out, and then people are definitely less intimidated when you throw out the bike bell.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you throw out an air horn or just yell at them, then usually they get a little bit defensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So it's just that matter of perspective.
And what's in your holster? That's your phone?
Okay, so yeah, the holster is the phone and wallet. So
Right.
you got the wallet. It's nice because you don't have to sit on anything. And then
Did
yeah,
the wallet come with the holster?
The wallet came with the holster.
Okay.
LD West, please sponsor me. That'd be great. So then, yeah, on top of that, we've got the phone, and then it just does its job.
Yeah.
It just
I've
became-
said, I know you kind of said it's not, but to me it feels very Vegas of you, even though you're like, it's not a Vegas thing.
I don't think it's a Vegas thing. 'Cause I met one guy who was working at a shoe store who had them, and I was like, "Hey, you got these too? Like, we're buddies now." But that was about it. I mean, outside of that, I'd never seen anybody with holsters.
It feels a little, like I said, it feels a little cosplay to me, but I dig it. It
yeah.
fits. It fits you.
It works, thank you. But yeah, with that, I mean, you don't have to sit on any wallet. You don't have to worry about your phone in your front pocket. Ended up like slapping against it or breaking it by bending it. It's just that little bit of less concern. If there's anybody doing any pickpocketing, then even less concern.
Yeah, they're really. It's probably a chick at the club. She's a little close.
Yeah, right.
Otherwise, it'd be a little weird if they're trying to pickpocket you here.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
It's like it's a lot of commitment to grab it from their side.
Yeah, right. Well, I bet you there's a lot of pickpockets in Vegas, right?
I don't know.
Amateur magicians
I
trying
haven't-
to
that would be funny.
trying to work out their routine.
Yeah, this might be yours. Where'd you
You're
know?
like, dude, I feel you stealing my wallet. No, I'm not.
No. Oh, look, a distraction. Let me grab this.
Pigeon out of nowhere. Right on.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I think that's pretty much about it. Is there anything else that you want to do while you're here in the city?
While I'm here in the city, I mean, I'm just happy just cruising around and just hanging out with people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest
Are you
thing.
coming out to the Halloween ride?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might have
So
just immediately dated this podcast episode by
Yeah,
saying
right.
that.
But yeah, I mean,
You're going to see a lot of, I don't know what the numbers are out in Vegas,
Sure.
but all types of PEVs show
No,
up for
I'm
that
excited
event.
to see
and it's
that, yeah.
gonna be wild.
for sure.
This year I bought a costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I specifically thought of a costume that that when you see me, you'll go, that's a costume.
Okay.
And it's also subdued enough to where I can, if it gets cold, because it often gets cold on
Yes.
Halloween,
It's adaptable.
I can wear a heavy jacket and it doesn't ruin the costume.
Nice. Okay.
Like, I'm kind of a Star Wars fan. I was like, oh,
Okay.
if I dressed like the Mandalorian,
Yeah.
but there's no way to be.
But gear.
I'd have to put a jacket. Like if it got cold, I'd have to put a
Uh-huh.
jacket on. Then just like Mandalorian wearing a bomber jacket.
It's not as edgy.
It's a little weird. And obviously, like anything with a cape is out unless you're Marty.
Right. Only Marty can wear the cape.
Yeah, I think it was a do-rag that grew until it became cape length.
Yeah.
So it's 2 in 1. But yeah, man, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Let us know again, what is your Instagram? I should ask you up front. What is your Instagram handle? What is your
Instagram handle is relaxturbation. RELAXTERBation. BATION.
And do you do anything on YouTube or no?
On YouTube, it's so I have
More your friends.
I have Relaxturbation, aka Law, that has like really old clips of me doing random other hobbies.
Right.
Eventually, it's a matter of time until I start creating like random tutorials and EUC content.
Are you on TikTok? I know that's a
I'm
thing.
not on TikTok. I avoid that as much as possible.
I tried it for like a night, and then I was
Yeah.
like, "This is weird."
No, it's interesting because it just captures everybody's ADD. It's just
My buddy
who
who was big into it was like, "Bro, you should be into TikTok with your wheel."
I get it. I get the appeal. People are gonna end up buying into it and all that, but there's so much more to do than just take random clips of
Maybe
yourself.
I'm just too old for it or something.
Maybe I can't get into it. It's just a whole bunch
Instagram
of,
is like my main social media of choice.
Same here. I only use Facebook because of the general like the local community and just that little bit of outreach. But everything else is on Instagram.
Yeah. Okay.
So then you have that, and then there's what was it? EUC Las Vegas. We've got the little channel that we had, but we got lazy with it. But we'll maybe get.
Do you guys talk on Telegram the most, or what's the service you use to chat with the local guys?
Our local guys, we use Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
Majority of us hate it, but at the same time, all the newer people getting into it or meeting us end up having Facebook already. So then we just go off that.
You could consider Telegram.
We could. We
Because
have,
you can like seriously mute it all, and so you
Exactly.
just check in when you want to.
Right. Yeah. We have a couple specific. We have a couple specific telegrams that we'll end up talking on, but yeah, majority of our conversations and stuff end up being on like Facebook.
Would you say it was your Facebook one's called like Not a Bicycle or something?
Or no, it's, yeah, our group chat is not bicycles.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, Law. Well, thank you so much for coming by. It's good
Thank
to hang
you.
out. Good to
For
chat.
sure.
Glad you're in town, riding with everybody and showing everybody the other side of
It's a great time.
riding.
Showing them the world.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys on the next one.
Peace.
Go, go, go.